something new, Jackson Brown. Good morning to one and all present here. It's my pleasure to extend a cheerful welcome to you all for the FDP on utilizing cutting-edge pedagogical approaches to enhance educational efficiency. Small cheer and great welcome makes a very merry beginning. I consider it a great honor to welcome the resource person of the day, Dr. Gunjan Mohan Sharma, Associate Dean, Jindal Global Business School. Hearty welcome to you, sir. If your action inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. We're happy to welcome Professor Vijay Kumar, Head Department of Commerce. Sir has been a constant guide and support and is the reason behind the perfect planning and execution of this event today. We welcome you, sir. I also extend my warm welcome to all faculty coordinators of FTP, participants from various institutions, and faculty members to the session. We welcome you all. Now, I request Dr. Chandrakantan J, Faculty of Commerce, UG, to introduce the resource person of the day.
Thank you, ma'am. Is my voice is audible?
मैडम
Yes, it's audible.
एक बात करो डॉक्टर संदीप सर से कि हमारा जो प्रोजेक्ट का वो है you should guide this.
Yes, sir, you can continue, sir.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Well, it's my privilege to introduce today's chief guest, Dr. Gunjan Mohan Sharma is professor and associate dean at Jindal Global Business School, Jindal Global University, and Institute of Eminence. He did his MBA and PhD from Andhra Muslim University. His key teaching and research interests include HR analytics, talent management, and employees' sentiment analysis. He is an avid researcher with various international and national research publications of repute in his domain. In his 15 years of career, he has conducted multiple training programs, FDP and ADPs, including the training program on business analytics for CME professionals in Colombo, and a consulting assignment for 3 months on training effectiveness. He has conducted training sessions on leadership, communication, negotiation, etc. for various PSUs and other government officials. He is an IBM certified professional in predictive analytics and big data analytics. He is certified professional in people analytics from IIM and Wharton Business School. So we have a wonderful person with us. So it's my privilege to introduce today's resource person. Thank you, Ted. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Gunjan can take over the session.
All right, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction and warm words. I hope I'm audible clearly.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
All right, great. So I think I'm very pleased to see participation in large numbers, and I'm sure that this FTP is gonna make a lot of positive change, and it's gonna meet its desired and intended learning objective for all the participants. Thank you for inviting me and having me here, and I'll try to share my experiences and thoughts on the topic that has been provided to me, with the hope that probably I would be able to stir some thoughts and make the thought process going on. So the topic that I'm gonna speak on today, and not just speak on, but I would love to discuss with everyone here, is inquiry-led learning. So let me share my screen. Just give me a moment. I hope this is visible, right?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
All right. So in this 30-40 odd minute session, please feel free to interrupt me and chime in with any question, any doubt, anything that you want to discuss. I would really want to keep it two-way, and at any point in time, if you want to have any query, if you want to bring in your thoughts and your perspective, you want to share your experience, it would be, perfectly fine with me. In fact, that is something I would really, really appreciate. So the topic is inquiry-based learning. And before we start the session, I would love to understand from the participants, those I'm sure who have been teaching undergrad and postgraduate students, uh, as to when you go into the classrooms, whom do you think is the owner of the learning? So obviously the student is there to learn, but then who takes the ownership? Is it the faculty member that takes the ownership for students learning, or is it the student that takes the ownership of their own learning? Who do you think is the owner? Maybe anyone would like to respond that? Maybe key in your response. What is it that you would want to believe? Who takes the ownership? Faculty? All right, I see one response. Dr. Chandrakant is saying faculty is the owner. Anyone else? All right, so I just have one response here. Any which way, let's keep trying and improve on this. Otherwise, it's gonna be just one-way street, right? So, see, this has traditionally been a long hold thought that faculty are the owners of students' learning. Now, when we're talking about new age learning pedagogies, when we're talking about new age learning methods, when we talk about the newer kind of skill sets, because see, the things have changed outside. Now, earlier rote learning was very, very effective because there's a lot of information that one needs to, have with them. But now, if you see, information is available just on your thumbs, right? Everyone, including students, have a very, very good access to information, and they just need to, click. In fact, they have access to information which is probably not there in the books, right? And it is goes beyond books. So if you talk about business examples, if you talk about what is happening today, obviously that's not there in the book. That information is also available to the students, and they can access that information just on a Google search. Now the information, the conceptual information is there, the real life examples are accessible to them, everything is accessible to them, right? So what they need to do in present world and be relevant for the future world is to have this skill which makes them or enables them to make sense of all this information. In fact, if you ask me honestly, today's generation is faced with the problem of information overload, because there is too much of information around them, and really do they know little as to what they can do about so much of information, right? So if we ask any management graduate to make a decision, right, a management decision around a certain business problem, the first problem that he may face is there is too much of information available. And the second problem, which is a related problem, is that how to make sense of all that information which is available to him or her for that matter. Now, given that, it is very, very important that they pick up skills around critical thinking, problem solving, and problem identification and defining. These are very useful skill sets for any student today, irrespective of the stream, right? So even if it is a science graduate or a management graduate or a law graduate, right? It is very important that the student has critical thinking skills, and that he can make sense of all the information available, and that he can go to the root of the problem and can search for solutions, right? So he need that inquiry based approach, right? That inclination is very, very important and very much needed. That is why I believe and I recommend that the owner of the student learning has to be the student himself. And trust me, this is what I've been practicing for last 1 decade. So when I go into the classroom to teach any subject, any semester, probably the first thing that I tell my student is that, see, I'm not responsible for your learning. You are responsible for your own learning, and I'm just going to facilitate you, help you in your learning process, right? So you are the owner of your own learning, right? So I beg to differ from the response that we got in the chat box there. The faculty is responsible. If students also know the faculty is responsible for my own learning, they're gonna put very little effort from their end, because they also probably believe that it's the faculty who has to make me learn, but it's the other way around, right? Student is responsible for his or own learning, right? So they have to make those real efforts. And inquiry based learning, the thought at the center of it is the same, that who is the owner? It's the student who is the owner of their own learning, and faculty is just a facilitator. So the key role of a faculty is not to teach. The key role of a faculty is to facilitate, right? So we all as teachers in the classroom are not teachers, we are facilitators. That is something that we need to believe in, right? So let us progress ahead with that thought in mind and see that how does inquiry-based learning works. So what is inquiry-based learning? I'll be quick and skim through this part because this is very, very self-explanatory. Although please let me know whenever you want any further understanding of my help. It engages learners by creating real-world connections through high-level questioning and exploration. It encourages learners to engage in experiential learning and problem-based learning, right? So there's a slight difference, right? What it essentially means, I have tried to sum up that in the third bullet, that IVL is a teaching method that engages students in active learning. Active learning here is important because it's where students are pretty much active in their learning endeavors and actions, right? So while faculty is very, very active, but at the same time, the student is taking, key interest in his or her own learning, and that the student is engaged, and that's why it's called active learning. And students learn actively by exploring topics, asking questions, and discovering answers through critical thinking. Now you see here, the questions are being asked by students. The student go out on a route to exploration and discovering answers to those questions. And they also discuss those questions, answers, right? And they also discuss it with the faculty member that what is the problem in the first place, if they need any clarification, or if they need further assistance in understanding the business problem at hand, right? Now, all of this has to be driven from a student point of view, and the student must initiate all of this. And the key skill that they would require for this is critical thinking. Can they think through, right? And this is what inquiry-based learning is, right? In simple words, it is making student the owner of his or her learning. Two, it is motivating the student, make sure that the student is actively engaged in the exchange which is taking place inside the classroom, and that he is actively involved in his or her own learning. Three, making sure that the student is actively thinking, and he's thinking to understand the problem, he's thinking in the direction how to solve the problem, and going on an exploration, right, using various resources to find out answers to the questions that he has with him, right? So this is going to be the definition of it, the broad definition of it. There are certain components of inquiry-based learning, and this is not a very exhaustive list. There's just an indicative list, although I have provided a brief description here. But it's like observation, conceptualization or the questioning stage, investigation, as I was saying, exploring the answers to the questions, concluding, making a choice out of various alternatives available, and then discussing it with the faculty member or with the peers, and then with the faculty members inside the classroom. So I think this is kind of an end-to-end process that a faculty needs to facilitate inside the classroom with the students, right? It's like when you go into the classroom, you introduce a topic, and probably then you make your students think, right? So at the end of the presentation, I'll have an example with me, which is a very recent subject that I'm teaching. I'll share my experience that how do I approach this in that subject that I'm teaching, right? So the brief description, if you read around observation, it's it's the step wherein the instructor introduces a new concept and the student explore the topic through hands-on activities or through direct instructions and research, right? So for example, if you have to teach, let's say, digital disruption inside your classroom, or if you have to teach digital leadership, let's say, in your classroom, right? So how would you go about this topic? So there could be multiple ways in which you can approach this topic. One, you go with a chalk and board approach, or you take a PowerPoint presentation and take off PPTs with you, or third approach could be that you just introduce the digital leadership concept to them, and then you throw a question back at them that what do you think, why do you think digital leadership is so critical in these times, right? And the moment you open it up for students to think, right, that's where they are thinking more about not just why digital leadership is so important, but also what is digital leadership in broader terms, right? So this is kind of a follow up and opening up to the students for their participation, their engagement, and making it a two-way communication, right? So that could be the observation stage. Now, what does the conceptualization of question stage does to them is, it's the stage where the student generate questions about the topic, right? So for example, the same example, if I have to continue with it, once you open it up for students, that why do you think digital leadership is so relevant, pertinent, or important for organization in current times? The student may have certain questions at this point in time, right? That probably he may ask that, do we need to look at the business environment? Do we need to look at particular industry? Or do we need to, what do we mean by leadership? Is it people leadership or business leadership? There could be multiple questions that a student may come up with at this stage. Now, if a student is asking question, it means that the student is really thinking, right? Now, how I go about at this stage is, I tell my students that I'm not looking for right questions. I'm not looking for right questions or right answers for that matter. I'm just looking for questions and answers that you may have with you. So please don't hesitate if you have any questions or if you have any kind of answers with me. I'm more than years to listen to both all sorts of questions and all sorts of answers. Now, that's how you facilitate students to ask questions, encourage them to ask questions, because if they're asking questions, they are thinking, right? And that's exactly what you want in any sort of learning, right? For that matter, any approach you pick up, it's very, very important that there is an active learning at the student's end. And the point that I'm trying to push here is that how does inquiry-based learning pushes students to be more interactive, more engaged in the learning process itself. Now, third is the investigation step. Now, once you have clarified those doubts, basically these doubts at the second stage are about understanding the problem at hand, the topic that you would have provided them or they would have chosen for themselves. The question answer stage helps the students understand that in a little bit better manner. And once they have a clear understanding of it, the third step is they may want to go into an investigation stage, right? So for example, if I make it clear to my students that I mean business leadership, right, for let's say a technology industry, and why is digital leadership for business leaders is very, very important in the technology industry at a global level, let's say. Now I have made my problem statement much more clearer because the students have all those kind of questions. It's not that I didn't had a clear problem statement with me when I walked into the classroom. I had it, but then I wanted students to participate in that, ask those questions so that they are more involved in this entire exercise, right? And this entire effort of teaching and learning goes to another level, right? So now that we have a clear problem, the students go into an exploration, and at this point in time, what I generally do is I divide my groups into smaller groups, and it's kind of leaving them on their own, right? So I would not suggest that what kind of learning resources you can refer to. As I said, resources are very, very important. I tell them that you can use your mobile phones, you can use your laptops, you all are connected to internet. So if you want to search or read any article, any paper, any book, any theory, anything, any white paper from the internet which would help you understand this, you're free to do that. All of you can discuss it, right? I try to give them a template at this point in time. That's it. That this is the template in which you need to record your understanding, right? Again, that template is not very strict. It's not a guideline that you need to search for 1, 2, 3 items. No, not like that. But it's kind of a balanced template so that, the different groups come up with one uniform way of reporting their understanding, right? So while the process could be completely different across groups, and at that level, they are very, very heterogeneous in that regard, that they are following different sources, resources, and that they are referring to maybe different perspectives from different business leaders, but all of them are reporting in one single format, right? And it's a group-based activity, so peer learning is also a very interesting and interactive approach, and that way everyone is involved. So this is the role of faculty again at this step, that how does a faculty becomes a facilitator and encourages the learning in which the learner is deeply, actively involved and engaged, right? Now, and I typically give them a timeline. So if I'm having a 90-minute session, right, and the problem definition takes 15, 20 minutes, I would give them another 20 to 30 minutes, or maybe a little bit more, depending on how complex the problem I believe is. And once that time limit is over, I would want everyone to either share their templates with me, or I'll voluntarily ask them to share it with everyone inside the classroom. So they come on or they stand up and they share it, and the house is open for one more round of discussion. And this time they're discussing between groups, not just between the members of the same group, right? So if I've got 10 groups of 5 members each, earlier it was just 5 people discussing with themselves. Now it is like 9 other groups listening to one group's findings, and they are free to interact, ask questions, and maybe make comments on other groups' findings. Now this is again very, very interesting, right? And that's the conclusion stage, that once the data has been collected, students comes to conclusion and answer to the questions that they have decided on right at the beginning of the class, right? Or they find out if the hypothesis or ideas prove correct or have shortcomings, and this may give rise to more questions, as I said. Now, again, if you see this entire process, these steps, the role of the faculty, I'm yet to teach them that why is digital leadership so relevant. I'm yet to cover that part from my side. Still, if you would have noticed, and if you have, if you try to visualize it in your own classroom setup, you would realize that enough learning has already taken place without you being actually teaching your students, right? And in this entire process, you are making students as owners of their own learning. You have yet to speak, right? And after conclusion, it is again discussions. And after discussion, there's one more conclusion, right? Which is not there on the slide. But it depends if there are differing views, and you have time really to discuss those differing views, and again come up with one common understanding, a shared understanding. So typically at the end of this 90 minutes, I finally come into the picture with all the combined findings and look at it, make sense of it, and tell that, okay, yeah, this is what is so relevant and meaningful from your discussion. I'm taking all of this. If there is anything which is left, I would add to that, right? And obviously, I'll give feedback also and participate also in all of that discussion, making sure that we are talking relevant things and all of that. At the end of 90 minutes, it's me who is summing up everything and telling the students that why digital leadership is so relevant in current times. But in this entire process, students have been very, very actively involved. They have self-learning, and more than just understanding why digital leadership is so important. The funny aspect here is that this understanding of the topic becomes a byproduct for me. You know what is the key learning and major learning in this? The major learning in this is that students have now learned how to learn. They have just demonstrated critical thinking skills. They have worked in a group, so they have exhibited team groups and group dynamics and team skills. They have referred to various resources, which means they have picked up the art to be selective in their approach as to which set of information is more relevant or crucial. So these are the skills which are typically needed in today's workforce, right? That how you're going to be selective in your approach when it comes to information and data, how you will work in teams and groups with differing ideas, and people may have diverse opinion, how you will be accommodative of all of that, how will you consider it, how will you consider all these differing views and opinions and yet arrive at one common understanding at a group level, right? So all of these are major contributors to students learning, and not just that question. So I personally feel that the topic at hand and getting an answer for that just becomes a byproduct, right? So there is another different way of putting the various components of it, where student centeredness is one approach, collaboration, constructivist theory, and critical thinking, right? Again, constructivist theory says that students are the owners of their own learning and that they need to actively participate in the learning process, right at the center of which is inquiry based learning, right? So as I said, if you divide them into groups, and there is group discussions also happening between groups, there's enough collaboration which is taking place. The approach is very, very student centered because they're actively involved. Student centered doesn't mean catering to students' demands. Student centered means that you are really interested in their interest, you know what is right for them, and that you are doing that. Critical thinking, that's what students are exhibiting, and constructivist theory is what you are facilitating as a teacher, right? And what lies at the center of that is, and the overlap of all these four elements is inquiry based learning. Just a different way of putting in the previous slide. Again, why would one would want to go for inquiry based learning? This is an infographic I have taken from the internet. So I find this really true and very, very, interactive. So first is it nurtures student passion and talent. And the example that I just gave you, you would agree that students become very, very passionate because they are participating in a group. They want to show to others also that they know. And since it's a peer pressure also on them to, provide inputs and give opinions on the given topic, they're forced to participate in the group learning exercises, right? And gradually over a period of time, they will develop that passion for that. It empowers student voice and honors student choice. As I said, that you are empowering your students, you are making them, you're telling them that, whatever you come up with is important and relevant. So I'm going to consider that. I'm going to provide feedback on that. I'll open it for all the classroom, everyone in the classroom to comment on. So the student, in a way, consider himself or herself to be more empowered that way. And his or her choice is getting, recorded, is getting noted when I sum it up. It increases motivation and engagement. I think I have explained it enough. It fosters curiosity and a love for learning, right? So students are always curious. So now my students look forward to what I would come with in my next class. So I might just, the last class that I had, I just went with a fishbone exercise for them. And I just asked them that, okay, this is the organization. Now you tell me that what are the options this company has, in terms of solving the business problem that they may be facing. And I just gave them the fishbone template. I didn't give information about the company. I just asked them, okay, you go ahead, search about what is happening to this organization from internet, with refer to various sources, think what are the problems, record it in a fishbone template, right? So again, it was a very interactive exercise. Finally, it teaches great perseverance, growth mindset, and self-regulation, because the student who is the owner of the learning, so if he's not any of these, he's going to compromise on his or her learning. So you teach all of this gradually over a period of time to student. Make research meaningful and develop strong research skills. As I said, the student is going back and referring to various sources, becoming selective in approach in terms of what information has to be used, and more importantly, what sense the student would make out of that information which is available. Now, all these are research-based skill sets, right? And which is very, very important these days, because as I said in my beginning delivery, that there is an overload of information, right? So it's very, very important that you have the art and the skill with you to funnel out the information which is actually relevant to you. Okay. 7 is a deepen understanding to go beyond memorizing facts and content. So there is a saying that if you teach me, I will learn XYZ, and the final thing is if you make me do, I learn it forever, right? I understand it. So that's what learning by doing. So once they do anything that they do inside the classroom, similar like this, they would always remember that why digital leadership is so important. For example, in current words, rather than me throwing a couple of PPTs back at them. 8 is fortify the importance of asking good questions, right? Because although students may ask some questions when you are giving them PPTs, but then when they go through a lot of information, the quality of questions improves a couple of notches up, because now they're reading, now they're making sense of it, understanding on their own. So they have certain genuine gaps in understanding, which they would want to, let me just, yeah, some genuine gaps which they may want to fulfill in terms of their learning. Then enable students to take ownership over their own learning. And this is the most important thing, I believe, that a student has to be an owner of his or her own learning. For example, the session that is happening currently, please don't think that I'm the owner of your learning, right? I'm not. Right? It's you who is the owner of your own learning. I'm just here to share my experience, share my knowledge with all of you. The ones who are deeply involved, engaged, and interested in their own learning would have a couple of cents. The takeaways would be that. But the ones who are not so active, a little bit dormant, for them the learning would not be there, right? And that's why in a classroom also you would have seen that if you're teaching 60 students, some of the students would learn, some of the students would learn something, and some of the students would learn nothing, right? So it's not the faculty is responsible, right? If even few students are learning, which means I have done my part. And that's why these students will learn it, right? But the fact remains true that only few could understand, and only few could understand a little. It's because the level of, engagement the student has in his or her mind, right? How involved a particular student is in your class. That's where it's a highly moderating variable, so to say. So if your teaching quality is an independent variable, learning of the student is a dependent variable. I think what mediates this relationship is how actively involved your student is, whether he's interested in his or own learning or not, whether he considers himself as the owner of the learning or not. This is very important, right? 10 is solve the problem tomorrow in the classroom. So today, as I said, that why digital leadership is important, just a byproduct, right? So what the concept that you are teaching just becomes a byproduct, right? Although it is very important, but it's a byproduct because student is learning something which makes him a lifelong learner, right? And which is very useful for tomorrow. So if you teach students through inquiry-based learning, you are inculcating research skill in your students, you are inculcating group skills and team skills, collaborative skills. He is now thinking more critically. He understands the problem. He's on a discovery and exploration of data and information available. Now, these are the skills that are lifelong learning skills, right? So you are creating workforce of tomorrow by your discussions happening inside the class today. Again, a very important part. So I hope this is clear, right? And there is this example that.
Okay. In the upcoming classes, we'll do now.
All right. No problems. Happens all the time in virtual setup. Okay, so this is a real life PowerPoint that I've taken from my subject. So I teach leadership in VUCA environment to my MBA students in elective course. So this is the first slide, right? So I teach them that what is VUCA and what's the acronym. And then I just told them that, see, these are the VUCA elements in various industries, some of the industries I've taken here. So for example, in technology industry, some of the volatility elements could be rapid technological advancements and so forth. Now, once I go through this and I tell them that what does VUCA means, right? Introducing the topic to them, they need that much of a conceptual understanding. The very next task that I gave them was after 15-20 minutes inside the classroom is that you pick up any two industries and pick up any two companies, right? One from each. So if you pick technology and healthcare industry, you pick one company in the technology industry, one company from the healthcare industry, and you tell me what are the VUCA elements for that company. All right, and this could be very different from the list which you see on your screen because it's an indicative list. It's not a component. It's not a very a list which has all the factors, all the elements with it, right? So students actually go back and they pick up a technology company. So for example, they will pick up Tesla from here, right? And they would read about Tesla and they will see what are the volatility elements, what is the ambiguity that surrounds Tesla, right? What is the complexity elements in Tesla? Similarly, for healthcare, they do the same. Now, once they come up with that and we discuss that, the very next task that I gave them is I teach them that, okay, these are some examples of the leaders that how they are navigating the VUCA elements, right? So in this case, and this is the real life connect that you need to bring into your classrooms because that really ignites and engages students. They're really looking forward to it. If you make this connect that whatever you are getting to learn inside the classroom has a lot of meaning and bearing in the present business world, right? That's when they really become interested. So in this example, as you can see, I've told them that how Elon Musk of Tesla or Jeff Bezos of Amazon, right, how they are navigating rapid technological changes, right? So and then I ask them that for your company that you have selected, identify who is the business leader and tell me that what are the organizational strategies to navigate the VUCA elements that you have identified for yourself. And there are a couple of more things that go inside the classroom, or just an example that I wanted to share with all of you, that that's the approach I take with my students and how I believe I'm leveraging inquiry-based learning method. I hope there was some learning. I would be more than happy and willing to take up any questions that you may have. I'll try my best to answer your questions. That's all from my end today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for that interactive session.
Are there any questions that you can see?
Yes. I don't think so. There are no questions from here. So we are open for questions. Anybody questions can post it in the chat. Okay. Okay, sir. I don't think there are any questions. So thank you so much, sir. It was a very good session. We have learned so many ways of how to that teachers not the only responsible. It's also the students who are responsible for the entire session we are taking. Thank you so much. So we cannot do great things in this earth, only small things with great love, Mother Teresa. Now I request Dr. C. Nagadeepa, faculty, to propose the vote of thanks.
More urgent than giving thanks. We must find time to stop and thank the people who make a difference in our lives. Good morning, one and all present here. On behalf of entire Kristu Jayanti College, I deem it my privilege to propose vote of thanks on this third session of the Faculty Development Program. I take this opportunity to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the esteemed speaker of the day, Dr. Gunjan Mohan Sharma, Jindal Global Business School. Sir, your guiding words on inquiry-based learning was very useful to all the teaching fraternity. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to thank our beloved head of the department, Professor Vijay Kumar R, for his constant help and guidance that radiant a source of energy within us. Thank you, sir. I extend my sincere thanks to program coordinator Dr. Aarti Singh and other faculty coordinators of the organizing committee for the successful conduct of FDP. I would be failing in my duty if I did not thank the participants of this FDP who have made this day possible. I would also like to thank each and every one of you for being here and making this day a wonderful and memorable. Thank you all once again. Have a great day. I remain.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Aarti, for
Thank you,
coordinating
Gunjan,
and
sir.
invite. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks. Your participants will be winding up the meeting tomorrow also, same timing. You can join 11 to 12.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.